You know, believe it or not, and time does go by, it's 7 years since the then Prime Minister Kevin Rudd issued an apology to the Aboriginal people in this country. Now, not much has changed. There's a report out this week saying closing the gap hasn't really worked, the gap between white people and Indigenous people in this country. But the thing about this is very checkered. It's not the same in Redfern here in Sydney as it might be in the Northern Territory in far north Queensland. And there is still, well, you know, let's not gild the lily. There's petrol sniffing, there's sexual abuse, there's physical abuse, there's alcohol abuse, marijuana abuse, and not enough people with a job. And here's the worst statistic of all of them. And that is the Aboriginal people make up 2.3% of the population of this country, but there are 27% representation in jail, mostly young men, of course. And there is the gap. That's just one of the gaps. There's a health gap. There's an education gap. There's an employment gap. Closing the gap has just, for some reason, and I'd love to know why, never really worked. And throwing money at it, that never worked either. As we know, there were organisations like ASIC that sort of soaked up the money into some sort of a black hole, and it never made it to the people who really need it. That's the Indigenous people who are in trouble, marginalised, without a job, and addicted. Now, I don't know what we do about it, but I'd like to see a government that eventually comes up with a plan that's agreed to, this is the important thing, agreed to by the Indigenous leaders as to where we go forward with it. Getting kids to school, getting them to stop sniffing petrol, getting them off the booze, off the drugs, stop abusing women, all of those things. And it all happens. Now, closing the gap, do we narrow the gap? Do we get it closer? Well, it seems the gap is as wide as it's ever been. And we really should be ashamed of that.